Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. You're here for Analytics in Action, how-to webinar series by Association Analytics. We're going to give it just a few minutes to let people get logged in. So we usually ask a super fun question. The three of us had agreed on what we were going to ask, but I'm going to go rogue. So in a few weeks, we're going to be having a special Halloween session, which you're going to learn about in a few slides once we get started. And for that, Greg and Bill have promised to come in costume. So I would like to know your suggestions for their outfits. I would prefer some kind of duo. I said Bill and Ted, Wayne and Garth. So throw your suggestions our way.
I love it.
Ken and Barbie. It's great.
We'll flip a coin.
Very timely, yeah. Who gets to be who?
Yeah, peanut butter jelly time. Love it.
Taylor and Travis.
Ooh, that's a good one. I like Mickey and Minnie, Bonnie and Clyde. Good answers all around.
All right. Yeah, let's do it. I think we got a good group on here.
Let's get started. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Katrina McAfee. I am the Director of Growth Marketing here at Association Analytics. Today, your hosts are Bill Conforti. He is the SVP of Strategy and Solutions for Association Analytics. He's worked in the software industry for more than 20 years and has over 10 years of experience working with associations and nonprofits. And then we have Greg Pollock, our SVP of Sales Enablement. Greg has been in the industry for over 15 years, working for and with associations to help them be more successful. So you are in great hands. I am going to turn it over to, I believe, Greg?
No.
No.
Look, so first, so here's what we're going to do today, right? We're going to talk about data insights, and a lot of times we're talking about insights to action. So we had this idea. I mean, we talk about this in some of our sales things sometimes. Hey, what would you do if you knew, right? What action would you take if you had the insight? And how do you know which is the right one? So we try to make a bit of a game out of it, some fun exercise. So we're going to workshop it all the way from knowing the insights to taking the action. And we call this, what would you do if you knew? So next up, Katrina mentioned this. So there's a slide at the end. You can do the QR code. This is how you're going to register. We did something about dirty data and how not to let that kind of get in the way of your goals for analytics. That was a really popular one. We had a lot of interaction, have some follow-ups for that. So we're going to reboot and extend upon that one in our upcoming Halloween special. And there will be costumes. So highly encourage everyone to come out for that one. That one is going to be fun. So Greg, what's up for today?
What's up for today? Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about insight and decision-making. We're going to go through a little framework for you on how you can start to make decisions, how you can think about the cost of implementing the decisions and the benefits that you might get from that, and a little matrix around that. We're going to go through some fun exercises. We've got a couple teed up for you that we want to walk you through, and we want to get your feedback on what would you do. And we'll be asking you to participate in a little interactive survey, trying to make this more interactive for you today. And then go through all of your answers and talk about the different impacts of them. We'd love to have you participate as much as you can in the chat, throw comments and questions, let us know what you're thinking as we go along. We always cover this slide because invariably somebody at the end asks a question like, who are you guys again? So we are Association Analytics. We're a software company whose exclusive goal is helping associations love their data with the goal of getting insights into actions. We want you to know these things about your data within your association. And we want you to feel confident that you can make a data-informed decision and you can influence others in the organization using data as a language, using it as a storytelling tool to be able to make sure the outcomes are optimized within your organization. That's who we are, and that's what we do.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. Okay, so let's get into then the kinds of insights that we're going to look for, right? I mean, for part of this, I mean, we're just going to assume, right? We're going to assume that we have the insight. And we'll talk a little bit about how you would know that kind of stuff. But before we can get to that, let's talk about, like, what are the kinds of things you would look for? So if you were to think about all the insights that you would use for decision making to improve the performance of your association, you could break them down a bunch of different ways, but I think this is a pretty solid way to do it. Financial performance, right, would be one, where you would look at how you make your money, your revenue streams, who are your top individuals, who are your top orgs, things like that. And you always want to look at percent to goal. So you don't just like say we're going to earn as much as we can. You have goals and budgets and all those things. You want to monitor how you're doing for all those things. Membership growth. Almost every association has as one of their goals to grow their memberships. You want to look at your different funnels, right? Different sources for how you get new members. How are you converting in each one of those? You want to analyze the demographics of your new members as well as your existing. You want to look at the trends, of course, and maybe you want to look at the market as well, because just because, and many of us are in this position, you might not be growing as fast as you want, or you may not be growing at all, but that could be a market condition, right? There's some contextual data that you're missing that would dictate that, right? We also want to look at retention, so churn. We want to look at engagement, satisfaction data if you're keeping track of that. Even if you're not asking it, you can observe it, right, based on some other things, kinds of things that we talk about in literally every other webinar. So we won't do much of that today, but we'll allude to some of those techniques. And lastly, customer experience, right? This kind of catch-all for all of the things that you're doing with your members. How are they engaged? Does your value proposition resonate with them? And again, you can look at a number of things. You can look at Net Promoter or any other type of satisfaction survey that you might be engaged in. And of course, you can look at sentiment, right? So again, that's you can ask it and you can observe it. We say that all the time, but there are multiple ways to get at insight. So there are a lot more. If anyone has some others that they feel moved to add in the chat, now would be a good time to do that. But these are the kinds of things that we're going to look at. So NPS is Net Promoter Score. Lee, great question. And this is how we sort of, generally speaking, we're understanding who are the ones that are advocates, right? They're kind of brand advocates for our association versus those who are just kind of indifferent. They're more or less happy with us, but they're not going to recommend us to their friends. And those that are what they call detractors are the ones that would not recommend. So there's a very specific formula for calculating that, which you can Google, but it's pretty simple. You take the detractors and you subtract those from the promoters, right? It's all done on a 10-point scale, right? I think I did a reasonable job of explaining that in 20 seconds, but quick Google search will get you everything you need on that. All right. So next is...
Can I steal this one, Bill?
Yeah, go.
Sorry, this is unscripted. I wanted to steal this one. I was scrolling through the attendee list and I saw somebody on there that I used to work with way back in the day, and I thought this was really relevant. I think they'll get a kick out of it. Pick your battles. Back when I was younger in my career, everything was a battle. We would fire everything and any problem I could find. Everything was a stop the presses, we have to fix this. And through wisdom and experience, I have learned that's not normally the case. There's nuances in there, right? Some of the problems that we see pop up aren't really that big of problems. I mean, it's a problem and we should certainly solve it, but like on the list of problems, this isn't the biggest problem we have today. And other problems we run into, it costs a lot of time and money and effort to fix that problem. So we put this little matrix together here, and I want us to think, like, of all the problems our organization has, what are the ones that have the biggest impact when we fix them and have the least amount of money and effort to fix them, right? We could spend the most amount of money to fix this small problem that doesn't have a big impact, or we could spend a little bit of time and effort to make some small changes that are going to have a big impact. So as we're going through our exercises today, we're going to ask you, what would you do if you knew? And I want you to think about it, based on the level of the challenge we brought up. What level of effort is really worth it to solve that challenge? Is this a challenge we can just sort of let go and it's a problem, but we'll live with it? Or is this really a big challenge that we need to solve? And if it is, how cheap and easy can we solve it? Because every association is limited in capacity, in time, in money, right? And we want to be able to spend our time and effort on the smartest things we can. And I think walking you through these exercises today, you'll have some ideas and you go, aha, that's definitely a problem we should solve. Or, you know what, it's just not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze on that one. We're just going to let it go. And we know it's a challenge, but we'll put it in the parking lot and we'll circle back to it.
Cool. Yeah, well said. Thank you, Greg. So if you are a geek and you want to score things and plot them on axes like this, feel free to do that. If you are not, really just go through pros and cons, right? Think about what are the possible pros and cons for taking this action and how to, but related to, right, impact versus time and effort. Okay, so this is how the game works, right? So we're getting into the meat of it now, right? What would you do if you knew? We're going to go through this process. We're going to do an executive brief, and in that executive brief, I'm like the analyst. I put together some data. Greg's going to deliver it to us as a brief and ask us to take some actions, right? We'll talk about what actions we should take. We'll discuss the pros and cons of those actions, and ultimately we won't actually get to deciding one exact thing, but we'll go through that process, right? How would we decide on what, if any, actions that we're going to take? And we're going to go through some use cases that we have prepared, but in the end, we're going to do audience choice. So I want to have everyone now think about a situation, right? Some insight that you either do know or you would like to know, and then let's decide what kind of action we should take based on that insight. So as we go through, you'll get the feel for what we're talking about. If you have an idea, reach out to Katrina in the chat, and she will choose the best executive brief, and we'll invite you on at the end to deliver that brief, and we'll kind of crowdsource a solution. So should be fun. So try to go through pretty fast. We have enough time to do that at the end. All right. So with all of that, Greg, kick us off with our first executive brief.
Welcome everyone to the executive room. Thank you all for joining me today. I've been looking at our membership numbers, and our membership team sends me an Excel spreadsheet once a quarter with our membership numbers. I've obviously been compiling them in Excel. I took that Excel spreadsheet and I put a screenshot together today in our PowerPoint. And here's the bad news. Membership's on decline. Year over year, membership's been going down. And looking at membership into this coming year, we think membership's going to be down next year even further. We got to do something about this. This is a big challenge. What do we need to do about this?
Okay, so first question, what would you do if you knew? Everybody get their phones out maybe, or you can participate on the computer as well. But what would you do if you knew membership was going to be down next year? All right, so what you do is you scan the QR code, or you can join at that website with the code that's provided there. And that's going to let us vote on this one, as well as several of the upcoming surveys. So there's one called Q&A, and there's one called polls. So you want to be on the right side called polls. You want to choose your action, and then you want to press send at the bottom. All right, so
Nobody's cutting expenses or member fees. All right, interesting.
all right, a lot of targeted marketing campaigns.
Yep.
So Greg, does this square with what we see associations doing in real life?
I'd say, yeah, 100% the squares, right? If membership's going to be down, we got to target those people better. I think that's a lot of what they focus on. And I think enhancing member value is what they focus on, right? I don't think anybody's cutting expenses or cutting member fees.
Anybody doing nothing? I didn't need to scroll down to see that one. I think I'm gonna assume that we don't have anyone doing nothing.
I don't think anybody, no.
All right, so stick around inside of the app here, and there's going to be some additional questions that'll come up as we go through the slides. But so over half of us said that we're going to implement targeted marketing campaigns. So let's go through and look at, as we said, some of the pros and cons, right? So first we said, well, look, if people are not renewing at the rate that we expected, then maybe the value proposition is not resonating. So we need to enhance our member value. And, there's some pros to that, right? We can improve satisfaction. And this is a long-term benefit. It's not just for this year. This is going to pay dividends for every year down the road, right? So there's definitely some pros to that. But on the other hand, could be expensive, right? Enhancing the member value might mean implementing some new products and new services. That's new content, things that we have to create. It's not only is it going to be expensive, but it could potentially be resource intensive as well. Now, what about those targeted campaigns, right? This one is easy, right? It's low cost, right? It's generally done over email. It's a high impact approach if we've used the right data to segment our members. So it's all good, right? Well, maybe not so fast. It's hard to segment, right? When we ask our association clients and prospects, what's your number one problem when it comes to marketing? I would say segmentation is the answer 90% of the time, maybe more, right? It's hard to do. Not only that, but remember, these are members that are not going to renew. These are at-risk segments. If they were opening every email you sent them, they probably wouldn't be, they probably wouldn't be at risk not to renew, right? So you're gonna have low response in some of those segments. What about dues adjustments? Not many people were doing that anyway, but that could potentially widen our prospect pool. It could be attractive to some of those bargain hunters that are just where the mission and the value doesn't resonate, but they're looking for a bargain. Yeah, I don't know if that's a good strategy, right? Those are not necessarily the types of members that you want to bring on anyway. But on the cons is, obviously that's going to reduce our revenue. And we could also reduce expenses. Now, nobody chose this one, but this one, it's not as bad as it sounds, I think, right? I mean, it's going to lower our ongoing costs. And here's one, and we talked about this before, the hedgehog concept, right? What are you great at, right? Maybe in some cases we're becoming bloated. We have too many products, too many services, and we have to prioritize and do things that we're best at, right? So reducing expenses, I think there are definitely some pluses to it, but members could perceive that as degrading the member experience, right? So pluses and minuses to all of that. Again, you can see how we're kind of considering resources and effort versus the potential impact. Okay,
my bet, Bill, is in the real world, reducing expenses is the actual number one thing people do.
Yeah, right. So this is why I was asking you if it's squared, right? Because I saw those people say, well, we're going to target our campaigns, but we see a lot of people saying that they struggle to do that. So quick question. This is not a poll question officially, but just in the chat, who felt like when they were making their choice, they didn't have enough information to really answer that fully, right? You didn't have everything you needed to select the right choice. Yeah, definitely. Me, Wayne says, right? But I think this is what happened to us when we did it. So a lot of people are agreeing to that, and so that's a really good segue for the next thing, which is you can't just make it based on the insight. You have to have some analysis, right? You have to there's some follow-up questions that you would have, and I'm gonna ask Greg to take us through what some of these would look like.
The good news, Bill, when you were reading that slide, our chat was asking all these questions. Mike here said, I'd wanted more data before I launched a targeted campaign. Why is membership declining? Are there reasons? Can we survey people? Can we go get the voice of the member? And I think that's the exact point we want to hit home here is just because the number is going down doesn't tell us the full story, right? Why is membership going down? Well, I have a couple questions. Is membership really impacting our business? What if these people aren't members anymore, but they buy stuff and they get certified and they come to our conference? Do we really care if they're members anymore? Why is membership declining? Is there a specific reason? Is there a member benefit that they were hoping to get they didn't get? Is there like a behavior they're not doing? Is there some sort of correlation? It's not one indicator. It's a ton of indicators, 100%, right? What about other revenue sources? Is this critical for us? Is membership 5% of our overall revenue? And if we lose that, it's not a big deal because we make 90% of our revenue from our big conference and these non-members come anyway. I don't care, right? No worries. What about a market analysis? Hey, membership's down because less people are graduating with degrees in my profession. There's just less people to attract, right? There's less people doing this job in the field right now. Markets are supposed to be shrinking. There's no way we can grow membership because there's less potential people out there. And then I think let's get some feedback. Let's just ask and observe, what are people doing? What's their sentiment? How are people feeling about this, right? Maybe it's some sort of budget constraint. The industry cut budgets across the board. And the members used to get their membership paid for by their company, and they're not paying for it anymore. So they're not joining anymore, right? And let's look at that engagement data. Let's look not at one indicator, but let's blend all of our things together and figure out what our overall engagement is. If engagement's high and retention's going down, maybe we need to start thinking about diversifying our revenue outside of membership. Or maybe we need to think about, why are these people engaging, but they're not members? There's some sort of thing we're missing in our membership mix that's really going to get people to want to join and retain with us that they can get as non-members. We need to change up our member benefit mix. So I think the answer here is let's ask follow-up questions. And you all did a great job in the chat of asking some of those, but let's dive deeper into our data to get the real insights on what's going on with our membership decline, the impact it's having, and what we can actually do about it.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Greg. Okay, so that was a bit of a softball, right? That's kind of a warm up. So we'll dive into a couple more. And again, back of your mind, keep thinking about your audience choice, right? Whoever that gets the most interesting one, we'll bring you on and let you give us an executive brief. All right. So, Greg, let's go to our next brief. What do you got?
Yeah, so we offer a bunch of different types of events at our association. We have in-person events, local, chapter, national, and then we have these virtual events. They're webinars, they're conferences that are virtual, they're hybrid events. And what we noticed is measuring the light blue is all of the attendees who come to our virtual conferences, and that dark blue on top are those attendees who also go to our physical conferences. And what we've noticed is that people who tend to go to our virtual events, they don't really also go to our physical events. There's a tiny little overlap, but most of the time, people who go to our virtual conferences don't also attend physically. What should we do about this?
Yeah, great. So yeah, and this is based on a real use case. Yeah, and we all did this, right? We all jumped into this, a few years back. During COVID, we all started our virtual and hybrid conferences, and what many associations found is that if you were to look at the overlap between those two, it's really two almost entirely separate populations, right? So with that in mind, what would you do if you knew that most virtual conference attendees have never attended an in-person conference? Right, a couple things, right? Would you implement a hybrid model? Right, a lot of us did that. I don't know how durable that was, but we at least did it for a couple of years. Would you go ahead and start voting? Right? Would you upsell or enhance? Right? Would you kind of improve that virtual experience? Right? Would you do separate? Right? You continue your virtual or continue your in-person, but also do in-person, right? You do separate events. Would you bundle, right? Bundles in the lead in the clubhouse. I'm a little surprised by that. So, right, you have your virtual conference, and if you come to this, I'm going to give you a discount to come to my next in-person show. All right, so that one is pretty popular. Still got some votes coming in. We got some people doing nothing. If you said other, can you jump in the chat and tell us what your strategy is? What would you do that we didn't think of?
I think bundling is the thing I see in the market a lot. Cynthia wants to find out why. We'll get there, Cynthia. We're going to find out why.
Yeah, so that's yes, that's the people have caught on and do a survey. Okay. Survey, Lena, just little inside baseball here. That was on the list, and it didn't make the cut finally. We took that one off, because that's kind of maybe falls into the to the follow-up, right? Kristen says we need to know the revenue implications for sure. Okay, right. So let's go through some of our pros and cons. But for purposes of this, like in a vacuum, just knowing that a lot of people wanted to bundle. A few of us wanted to do a hybrid model or just kind of maintain both of those separately. 10%, right? Not a huge sample, but 10% said, look, we got this virtual thing. We just didn't sell it well enough, right? We need to enhance it and we need to promote it better, right? A few of us, and a couple of us are doing nothing. If anyone said you're doing nothing, give us some insight into why you made that choice. That's an interesting one for me.
Bill, if we go back to our level of effort framework, I think bundling might be our easiest solution with potentially our biggest bang for the buck, based on how much effort you have to put into how much reward you get. That might be our highest ROI, but it might not be the ultimate highest return we can get. We spend a little bit more time separating events. That seems like a higher lift on us, but it might ultimately be a bigger benefit.
All right, let's jump in, right? So what about a hybrid model, right? So let's look at pros and cons, right? And these are just like real simple. So if you have some other pros or cons, feel free to bring those up. Right, so accessibility, right? So we can potentially appeal to the people that like the in-person as well as the ones that like the virtual, and it's flexible, right? They can choose the things that they want, right? What about cons, right? On the other hand, though, there we go, right? Hybrid events are complex, right? And they're and they're expensive, right? A lot of us found that out the hard way. Just adding on something virtual to your existing event is not an easy thing to do, and the cost of doing it and doing it together in the same location is can be quite high, right? What about the ones that said we want to enhance the virtual experience, right? Well, that improves our attendees, the experience of the attendees, and relative to some of the other things, it's pretty low cost. On the other hand, we might need to invest in some better technology, right? Or we might need to create some new content. We might have a learning curve, for staff or for some of the attendees, right? What if we're going to do both? This is going to mitigate some of that revenue loss to Greg's point, right? It's going to maximize our pool, right? So it's like, hey, look, these guys over here and these guys over here. It might be harder to draw them into the hybrid, but if we keep keep people where they're comfortable and maintain those separately, we're going to maximize our pool, right? So I think there's some merit to that. This is going to be resource intensive, right? We need a whole new team to to develop and to manage our a parallel track, right? In person and virtual, right? Or we can bundle, right? So this is this is a good transition path, right? For our virtual people, we can bundle and bring them over to our in-person. So that's, when I said bundle, that's kind of what I had in mind, not necessarily the other way around. But I guess potentially you could do both. But I thought maybe that it would devalue the in-person experience a little bit, right? If I can get essentially the same content, then maybe I don't want to come in person, or maybe I'm less likely to do it. On the other hand, if the content is totally different, maybe you're giving a discount to someone that would otherwise come. All right. So follow-up questions, right? What else might we want to know?
I think a couple of people in the chat started us on the right pathway. We got to get some feedback from our attendees. Let's survey our virtual attendees and find out, do they not have travel budget? They have kids, they can't get them in daycare. They have a disability, they can't physically attend. And virtual is the modality they prefer. Great, we should figure that out. We should talk to our stakeholders outside of our attendees. Are exhibitors and sponsors really going to want to do a virtual event if we have it? I've sat in a virtual trade show all day long and it was terrible. I got no value out of that, right? So like, how am I going to get sponsors to do these virtual events? Am I losing all this revenue if I only have this virtual event? Are there better ways to get my virtual sponsors engaged? Probably. We got to start thinking about that. Let's put some brain power behind that, right? I'd want to understand demographics. Is it certain types of attendees like to go in person, or certain types of attendees like to go virtual? I almost wonder, like, do executives want to be in person, but managers want to be virtual, like just a little bit easier for them to get to the event? Is it age? Is it loyalty? Hey, I've been coming to this meeting for 20 years. I'm going to be there in person regardless of what happens. Or this is my first time going. I'll dip my toe in the virtual water before I start jumping into the physical event. It might be that staff feedback, right? Running a hybrid event is like running 2.5 events at the same time. Your staff has to do all the work. Maybe it's travel distance. Maybe we're just not having the event in the right spot. I would love to come to your event, but I live in Alaska and you've never had an event in Alaska, right? I talked to an association who had their event in Hawaii and they said it was great. People love to go. And I was like, was it though? Did people really have the budget to travel to Hawaii to go to your event? Or would you have gotten more attendees if you had it a little bit more central, somewhere to get? And then look around at what the competition's doing. Are my competitors having virtual events? Are they doing hybrid events? We can sort of copy and cheat off their notes. Like, what's working out there in the marketplace that others are doing? Ask your friends, post and collaborate and see, hey, are people still doing these virtual hybrid events? What are you experiencing? I think all of these follow-up questions ultimately get us to our answer. I personally think having virtual events is a great idea. It's not going to ever replace our physical events, though. It's a different offering. There's different people who want to attend, and there's probably different topics we want to uncover. I almost guarantee you can boost your non-dues revenue right now if you look at all the attendees who don't come in person and create virtual events for them. You don't have to go crazy and have the most expensive virtual event ever. Put some speakers together, have a Zoom call, charge a little bit of money, get a sponsor to help pay for it, flash their logo up, give them 10 minutes in the beginning, and you've got a great virtual event that people are going to love, that's going to be a member benefit, And that's going to be their gateway to that physical event down the road.
Agree. Thanks, Greg. Great analysis. Yes, I definitely think there's the lack of overlap in those two populations that we see consistently is something that that's a solvable problem, and I think there's a lot of revenue that you can uncover by doing that. Okay, so next one. So next one is about community, right? So Greg, give us our brief on this one.
Kristen said we got to check in with Collaborate because it's such a valuable resource. Did you know that when we analyzed our data, the average spend of a community member is higher than the average spend of a non-community member? Right? When people get in the community and start participating, they spend more with our organization. What do we do when we have that knowledge?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so this is what we're looking at is average sales over time, like the size of each individual sale. So people that are community members, they're spending more each time they buy something with us than those that are not. So I wonder if has anybody experienced this? Do we have data on this? Is this something that I think we all probably suspect this, but is anyone working somewhere where they have the data and they can prove this? I would love to hear about it. So, so what do we really know about our communities, and what would you do if you knew that active community members spend significantly more than inactive members? Right, what would we do? Would we promote community engagement? Would we revamp our onboarding, right? Because that's one thing we can do to promote it. Would we use those targeted campaigns to push people towards the community? Would we implement that loyalty program? Would we have exclusive content, right, for those highly active members, right? Put some exclusivity to it or gamify it a little bit. Would we hire a community manager, right? That one came out hot in the beginning, and now it's trailing down a little bit. But this is obviously, a good way to promote participation across the community. So what would we do?
I've been voting as well, and my answers are just great.
Exclusive content. I'm surprised at two things. Number one, not a big percentage of participants, right? I just noticed that, and so shame on you if you're listening in and not participating. Get your phone out, and we want to hear from you in the voting, right? So we want to get a much bigger percentage of the audience to participate in these things. But I'm pretty surprised. Exclusive content is beating promote community engagement and rewards programs. Any big surprises here, Greg?
Exclusive content was my horse. That's the one I picked. Hey, if you're in my community and you're valuable and you're spending money, let's give you a little extra bonus. Let's give you something unique that you can get that other people can't get. And when they see it, they're going to want to be in that community too.
So do you mean exclusive content like just generally in the community? Like, hey, you need to be here because of all the exclusive content you can get? Or do you mean active members get access to additional content that inactive members don't?
So my thought was we have things that happen only in the community, and if you want those member benefits, you have to go there. We're going to do an AMA with Bill every Monday, and he's going to answer your tough questions. And if you want to get answers to your questions, you got to be in the community to get those answers. And my goal is to give a little bit of that carrot syndrome. Hey, did you see that? Ask Me Anything? Bill had some great advice. You got to join the community. And I start getting them in the community, and they start participating, and I think that correlates to a higher spend. That's what your chart said, right? So
yeah. Okay, great. And so this is almost like enhance the member experience, right? Or enhance the value proposition for membership. We're going to promote, the fact that we have this exclusive content. Okay, right. So a lot of us said that promote engagement, rewards program, and hire a community manager. Okay, so let's go through this, right? Promoting the engagement, right? We have higher satisfaction. It's convenient, right? We can do it with onboarding. There's lots of other touch points where we can promote that engagement. So that's kind of convenient and pretty low cost to do. But if we want to do it right and we want to have things to promote, that can be maybe, somewhat resource intensive. What about our loyalty program, right? So we're going to gamify it. It incentivizes participation in the community, maybe engagement overall, maybe spending. I think there's a retention or a stickiness to this, right? When you start to to have rewards, but this can be costly, and there's a risk, right, that it might not be so effective, right? So exclusivity and value for our content. And I think there could potentially be some, I don't know about upsell opportunities, but I would say instead of upsell, but like upping engagement, right? So higher engagement type of activities and opportunities that are available there. But at the same time, you don't want to alienate those that are not in the community. So have to be careful about how you message that. And then we have to create all of this content. Right now, if you're smart, you can coach your members into creating that content rather than doing that yourself. So that one you can mitigate a little bit. And last one is hire a community manager. So I think this can help you boost your overall activity. It can boost your responsiveness. Associations that have a community manager don't have many threads that just go unanswered, for days and days, which enhances the member experience. And just overall, I think that communities that have someone that's looking after them are more engaging, and kind of the experience is better to be a part of them. However, as we all know, this one can be expensive, right? So we don't have the budget for that community manager. And even if we do, finding a good one can be a challenge, right? So this one.
Is Bill freezing? I thought I was freezing. All right, well, Bill's freezing. That makes me feel good. Yeah, cut out for me too. Well, hopefully you attendees are still with me, and I'm not talking to myself. No, it's Bill. All right, well, listen, when Bill comes back, we'll get him back on here. But let's go through some additional info on these. My first thought here was this is just bad reporting, right? We didn't really run the report the right way. Our chart came out wrong, and what we were reporting on wasn't really what we thought it was. Because what's community member active really mean to us? Is it Bill logged into the community once and he's active, or he's in there posting every day? My other question is this correlation or is this causation? Like, our highly engaged members spend more with us and they happen to use our community. Like, is there really a connection between the two, or is it just engaged people spend more and engaged people use the community, right? So I think we really need to get to the bottom of the numbers behind this. And then I have some questions about those numbers. What are they buying more of? Is it just overall spends higher, or are there specific products they're buying more? Do we see them more at our conferences because they know everybody from the community, so they come? Do we see specific demographics that spend more, or is it just everybody spends more? And my last question is the sequence. Like, what happens? Is it people join the association, they participate in the community, and then they spend more? Or people join the association, they spend and they buy lots of things, and one of those things they happen to do is community? So I'm a little dubious on the data behind this, and I'd want some help from Bill. He would help me out with this one to try and figure out, is this correlation? Is this causation? Can we really align these two things? Or is this just a generic statement? Duh, people in the community spend more. They're more engaged. Of course they spend more. So I'd really want to get to the data science behind this before I start spending money on a solution where there might not be a problem that we have.
Yeah, so we've thought about this a lot. I mean, and it is easy to assume that causal link when you see that chart. It's probably not quite as simple as that. However, it is, I think, safe to assume that when you so the spending might not be directly attributable to community participation, but it is attributable to overall engagement, right? And community participation being sort of a gateway to broader engagement. The correlation is high, and honestly, the direction of that correlation isn't as important, really. So you know that you want people to be doing both of those things. So encouraging from both sides is a healthy way to do that. So which brings up an interesting point, which we didn't make directly, but if you notice, in many of these, we're not necessarily talking about specific numbers or specific percentages, but we're talking about trends. And if you've been on our webinars before, you know that we talk a lot about directional insights, right? So a lot of what we're talking about here is directional in nature. We didn't say how much more do they spend. We said significantly, right? How many times more? We didn't say by what percentage your membership is going down. Those are follow-up questions, right? And you do need to get into that to a degree. But for many things, especially those that are low resource, right? It's not a big risk to take that action. the exact numbers are not as important as the direction. Okay. All right, so last one.
Maybe last one. We're hoping that one of you
Yeah.
has one and you've been thinking about it and itching to discuss it with all of us. If that's you, message Katrina and say, hey, I've got one. Here's what I want to talk about. And you can either type it to us, or if you're really brave, you can join us on camera, and we'd be happy to have you. So we're counting on you for one, because we only have one more. We've got a little bit of time left to spend with you today. So let's talk about this one. This one's a real one. This one happens probably to your association. Our big annual event has an add-on that you can buy. And the add-on you can buy is the gala, the banquet, the classic, the golf outing, the whatever, is that additional thing that we ask people to buy. And every year it costs us money to do this. That red dotted line you see, it costs us about $80,000 to put on this additional thing we do every year. And back in the day, we used to make money when we did it, right? But year over year, we've made less money. Less people are attending our big add-on banquet every year. And we're starting to actually lose money on this thing. And, we don't want to lose money when it comes to our event. The board's starting to ask, what's going on with this? Why are we having this? Why aren't we making money on this? Why aren't more people coming to the banquet? Everybody loves the banquet. What are you talking about? What are we going to do about this? This is a sticky situation we're in, and it's political and it's revenue. We're kind of stuck on both sides, right?
Yeah. So, right, in the real world, this situation was, basically what we said. They started to lose money on this add-on event, but it was really popular with the long tenured members, to put it politely, right? So the more senior members really enjoyed it. They valued the tradition, and they were vocal in support of keeping this. But in the meantime, they were losing their shirt putting this event on every year. So it was kind of a bit of a hot potato politically. So yeah, Jen says, ditch the banquet, right? We shouldn't need to hear anymore. We're just going to ditch the thing, right?
Jen, you're going to go into a room full of people at the banquet every year who love it. They're going to not like that decision you just made.
Yeah, I mean, these are your board members. These are the, your highly engaged, loyal members. They spend the most, right?
Yeah.
They are the unsilent minority or something. I think I screwed that up, but you get the idea. Okay, so what would you do if you knew that formal gala, that add-on at your annual event, is losing money and probably losing interest as well, right? You're going to do new, less formal events. You're going to cut costs and do it, but do it cheaper. You're going to hire a fancy consultant and rebrand and relaunch that gala so that everybody now understands how worth it is. You're going to tier your pricing so that, look, those old timers, they want the gala. Yes, they can have it, but they're going to pay dearly for it, right? Right. So we're going to do some tiered pricing, or maybe we're going to do nothing, right? We're losing a little bit, but it's the cost of doing business. What do we think? We call ours an experience party. Well, it should be a highly valuable experience in that case, right? Maybe tiered pricing is one.
Not just the board members, it's their boss that wants to go to the banquet. Yeah, right?
It's a great name, by the way. And so for those of you that have something like this, is it included or is it an add-on, right? I have to buy that extra, $150, $200 ticket to attend this.
I think we're saying it costs money to go.
We are, right?
Okay.
For purposes of this, of the briefing, it costs money, right? It cost us $80,000 to put it on, and we used to collect $100,000 in revenue, but now we're losing. Rebrand. It's going to call us for it. That's see, that was for free. We didn't even need that fancy consultant in order to get that. All right, cool. All right, Tamara says it's included. All right, so even harder to ditch it if it's included, and people come to expect it as part of the price of admission. So,
they're cutting stuff at the event this year and charging the same amount as they did last year? Come on.
It's shrinkflation. Every other product and service in the world is doing that. Why should associations be any different, right? You get that box of cereal and it's like really thin now.
Yeah.
And it weighs almost nothing. That's the same price. Okay, right? So let's look at pros and cons, right? So our new, less formal events, it's going to be appealing to those young members. That was the other thing when they did have a little bit of demographics. So just broadly speaking, hey, young people didn't want it anymore. Old people wanted it, right? And maybe we'll increase our overall attendance. But we got this old guard, right? We don't want to alienate them. They're not going to be happy with this. And then there's also a financial risk to put on new events, right? We're doing something new. We can review the expenses, right? So we can put it on, but do it cheaper, right? We're going to preserve the tradition. We're going to cut expenses, but people are going to realize that it's not as valuable as it used to be, right? It's, we went from the nice sit-down dinner to the buffet, and people notice that, right? They don't perceive it as the high value. Now, with or without the fancy consultant, should we rebrand and relaunch, right? We're going to preserve that history. We're maybe going to attract some new audiences, right? People like soirees. They didn't like the gala because that's too stuffy for them, right? So we're going to relaunch. But yeah, still may not resonate with the young members, right? And it's probably not going to improve the financials, right? And unless we get a massive spike in attendance, which we might. What about the tiered pricing strategy? Yeah, with some revenue potential. If we have a lower tier, maybe we get some minimal spenders in. I'm skeptical of that, but and then it's going to be complex, right? So tiered pricing is, I know a lot of you have this highly complex, all these combinations and permutations for determining your member pricing, and that is bad enough, and you should try to get away from that if you can, but you should also avoid doing it with your events and other products and services, right? So we want to remove some of that complexity, right? What else do we need to know, Greg? Follow-up questions. Sorry, I covered it up there.
We got a lot of follow-up questions. My first question is the add-on just the banquet we're losing money on, or are there other add-ons at the conference we're losing money? Maybe there's other things we sell that are add-ons and we're lumping all that together, and this is just bad reporting from our standpoint. Maybe we're not losing money on the banquet. I don't know, right? Maybe the banquet and the golf outing both fall into the same GL code and we're losing money on one of them, but we can't tell. What's the feedback and sentiment? Why does the old guard love the banquet? Is it the opportunity to get together and network? We can do that in the hotel bar almost for free. We don't need to have a banquet and spend all this money, right? We can just, everybody at the hotel bar Friday night, we're going. It's the new re-envisioned gala. It's almost free.
Dinner on your own. This is
dinner
like
on your own.
you see in every event now. It's
get dinner
it's like actually
the bar.
Yeah, it's actually on the schedule, right? As though it's a sponsored affair. Anyway,
you get 1.5 drink coupons. Find a friend and split the half. Is there some sort of breakdown difference, right? Who's attending this gala? Can we see in the demographics? Is it by tenure? Is it by repeat attendance? Is it the old guard who's attending? Are young people not going to the gala? Maybe we're hiring the wrong band this whole time, and that's the reason nobody wants to go to the gala. ASC annual, TLC, loved it. Everybody wanted to go see that band, right? Good pick. Good opportunity to go. Financial analysis. Are we really losing money? Are we breaking even? Do we need to make money on this? Can we just absorb this into our budget and just deal with it? Maybe, right? Maybe losing money on this is okay if we're making gangbusters money on our event. And then find out what other people are doing. I threw this question out to a couple people in our office today, and they said they were just at an event in Texas, SAE had it, where they had a hotel bar party. And they had a couple sponsors with pop-ups doing drinks, and they invited some local beverage companies in to sponsor it and give away free tequila. And they said it was a great event. It was way better than the old banquet. And it was cheaper, and it was in the hotel, and it was easier for people to get to. You could pop in and pop out, and it was a great experience. Let's use this as an opportunity to refresh our experience and not lose it. And they got hats. I heard it was a great event, right? Tequila and hats. How do you not get wrong? That sounds like a way better event than the old banquet where we lost money and it wasn't what we wanted. Like, let's use this as an opportunity to re-envision, but let's use data. I think surveying those people who love it and find out why they love it's important, and make sure we're not losing the core of the experience, but we're upgrading the experience to a modern experience that people want to have.
All right. Okay.
What do we got, attendees?
Moment of truth. Anybody?
Drop it in the chat if you want to be bold, Katrina.
Executive brief.
No one submitted anything. I'm very disappointed.
Oh man.
All right, we
have a backup. We have our own, but we really would love to hear from you.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you if you have it, or we'll go with our backup. This is why we make backup plans.
All right. So, Katrina, we're going to invite you. You don't have to come on camera if you don't want, but give us our executive brief.
Trying to remember. Oh, I remember what it was. I'm sure most associations feel this pain. So we have lots of different departments, learning, marketing, sales, product, that are all sending different emails at different times, and no one knows that the other one's sending it, and we're just sending way too many emails. So I guess the brief or the question would be, what would you do if you knew that this was happening, say at an executive level, that there was just way too many emails going out? Sometimes it's on the same day from multiple different departments to the same members.
Okay. So we don't have a poll for this teed up, but I can tell you that the real world answer to this is nothing. So everyone has this problem, and in most cases, the answer about what do we do is nothing. But in the ideal world, if you knew that you were sending out way too many emails, what would you do?
You'd put together the Jen's communication calendar. Everybody would have it in Outlook, and we can see when you're scheduling emails. And everybody will put their emails on that calendar, right? No one's going to forget about it.
Yeah, that's the only con I can think of for that one, right? It's a great system. Yeah, the con is you know, like a lot of other things, it's there to be used, but doesn't always get used, right?
I like Will's consolidating messages. Can we squeeze all these together in one email with bullet points? Okay, I like that. Alicia said the same thing. Try and consolidate. Here's one. Every association I talk to says they send too many emails, and they admit it, and they want a solution to this. Higher Logic did a survey of members, and the members said, nah, we're getting just enough emails. That's not too many. Are we actually sending too many emails? I would say let's look at our data. Are we getting unsubscribes? Are people actually turning their emails off? Or that's not really a problem. Maybe we're not getting as high and as open of a click rate as we want, but we're not really sending too many. Katrina, you had a great point about relevant content.
Yeah, I actually recently went to Inbound and for HubSpot, and there was a guy talking about emails, and he actually encourages that you should be sending more emails, but they need to be highly targeted, relevant. So lots of segmentation that we talk about a lot, and sending the type of content that persona or that demographic wants and needs. So I know that can seem overwhelming, even on our team at A2. We have this problem, but you just start with one, like we just started with membership. Just start with one and go from there. It's better than the nothing answer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So a couple things you can do. You know, sort of go beyond the usual thing. We look at our click rate, we look at our open rates, and we've talked about all these on different webinars before. One cool chart that some of our clients use is just look at the relationship between the number of sends and the number of click-throughs, right? And so sometimes you'll find that there's an inverse relation, right? If you send too many, then your response rates and click-throughs and things start to go down. So you can monitor that. And of course, you want to organize and tag your emails, right? So if there is, it's not just one homogeneous, blob of messaging, right? The messages that you send out for fundraising are going to perform differently than the ones you send out for your newsletter, right? Or just the generic informational emails, right? So try to be as relevant as you can, of course, right? Segment and all that. But when you evaluate your performance, you also have to select, the segments there as well, right? So you know that, specific types of emails to specific audiences are performing well or not performing, right? So everybody knows all of that, right? It's so few of us are doing it that we thought that was a good one to highlight there. So a lot of pros there, right? There's not a lot of cons other than some of those things are difficult, right, to do in the real world. So anyway, so let's go ahead.
Wrap us up.
Go ahead and wrap it up. All right, so let's recap, right? So as Greg pointed out to us before, we're going to pick our battles. There was a few of them where we said we're going to do nothing, right? And doing nothing could be for two reasons. One is we don't, like, that insight is unrelated to this issue, right? So we're not going to do anything because this doesn't cause this. So we're not going to do anything to solve that particular issue. We're going to do something else, right, to solve that problem. The other thing is it's it's not worth it, right? The juice is not worth the squeeze, right? The problem is not big enough, or the solution is too big or too expensive, right? So we got to pick our battles. We always want to ask follow-up questions, right? Someone said, right, one insight is not actionable or something along those lines. Totally agree. We have to ask those follow-up questions. We have to obviously have our data in a position where we can easily answer those, or deciding on what to do becomes bigger than what we actually have to do, right? So we have to put that work in to get our data in the right place in the first place. Directional insights are good, often sufficient to make a decision. Let's not get paralyzed looking for, the exact, range of possibilities for the outcome or anything like that. Very often, it's quicker and easier to take an action and then find out that it didn't work and take another one, rather than sit there and endlessly calculate the probabilities of different types of outcomes, right? We have to measure our results. We know if that action worked or not. And, we have to do some work to put the systems in place in order to be able to do that. And we repeat, right? Repeat the things that work, forget the things that don't, and go forward that way. Anything else to add, Greg, by way of recap?
I think testing is one important thing. Break it into a small audience and test and see what happens. It's okay to get it wrong if you're breaking it into small audiences, specifically some of these marketing calls to action, or the discounts, or we're going to try this, try it with a small group and see what happens, right? It doesn't have to be all or nothing, some of these decisions. And I think a big recap for me here is reach out to the audience ahead of time and ensure seed questions are there. So when you ask the audience to participate, you have volunteers ready to go.
All right, great. Yeah, and so last thing I would say is we kind of put this at the end of all of them is, don't make this a theoretical exercise, right? Take this back to your association, try to put it in practice. We have insights, we have data. Let's all do better with taking action based on this. Okay. Hope to see you again soon. Halloween Day.
Early in the day, so you still get out with the kids and do trick-or-treating, no worries.
All right. In costume, I don't know if we had we should have done the word clouds.
Whatever Katrina picks, we're doing.
Right, where we see if there were multiple votes for anything, but I had some good suggestions. So great job on the suggestions. We'll do better next time on the executive brief suggestions. So thanks, everybody. Good to be with you today, and look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks, and have a great day.